Hey everybody, it's Mike Jeffers, ChicagoJazz.com, and this is episode 98 of Jazz This Week, live at Johnny O's. Today on the show, we have Keri Johnsrud. She is stopping by. We are going to talk about Iowa. We're going to talk about Chicago. We're going to talk about her brand new recording coming out, which is a tribute to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and a whole lot more, so stick around. We are back here at Johnny O's, episode 98, Chicago Jazz This Week. Keri, I asked this to everyone. You are from Iowa. You are in Chicago. Have you ever talked jazz in a hot dog stand?
Never in a hot dog stand.
See, I have not run into anybody other than myself or any guest that I've had on the show that has talked jazz in a hot dog stand.
See, it's unique.
It is very unique.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Some might call it crazy. Unique is a good word.
Yes.
I like that. All right. So I'm glad you're on the show today. You've got an important show coming up next week, which would be this week, March 22nd, Thursday night at Winter's Jazz Club. You have a brand new recording called Beyond the Neighborhood, the music of Fred Rogers, and we all know Mr. Rogers.
Right.
Which is going to be interesting because I didn't know that we could base an entire jazz recording off of Mr. Rogers, although he had a killer trio there.
Oh, yes. He had a great trio.
Killer trio. But before we get into all that, why don't we find a little bit about you? Because you've been playing around town for a long time. You've been doing a lot of stuff. But I don't know how many people know your background. You're actually from Iowa.
I am.
And did you start singing and getting into music when you were in Iowa?
Actually, I did a little bit of that. Like in school.
Growing up and stuff?
Growing up, yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't really start getting into performing until I moved to Chicago.
Okay.
Back in 1999.
1999,
yeah.
Okay.
So,
did you come here for school? Or
I went to school at the University of Iowa.
Okay.
And then...
For music or anything? Or?
No.
Oh.
Actually. I'm one of those that does not have a music degree.
What did you go to What did you go to school for?
Well, the official title of my degree is Sport, Health, Leisure, and Physical Studies with an emphasis in health promotion. So basically I could tell you how to eat healthy and
so it's nutritional stuff?
Nutrition and health education, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that like a job that you would then like get hired by a corporation or a school or somebody and you go in and do that?
Yep.
Is that what you're doing now?
Nope.
Okay. All right. You had enough of that.
Nope.
And now you're sitting in front of a hot dog and fries.
And it looks delicious.
See,
so.
well, you can have 3 of them when we're off camera,
Okay.
so nobody thinks that you eat badly.
Okay.
All right, so you're there, you're in school. Are you playing, doing anything? Were you interested in jazz at that point?
Yeah, well, kind of. I was involved with different choirs when I was in school. And I always liked jazz. I grew up listening to jazz, and but I never really assumed it would be my career path until probably my senior year of college. And I just felt like, I'm in college. I'm one of those people who I feel like I'm just getting a degree to get a degree. And then
yeah, I'm sure your parents were very happy to hear about that.
Yes, proud moment for them. And so they're like, to be a jazz musician, that's great. And so when I moved to Chicago, that's when I really started digging my heels into the music and listening to people around town and going to jam sessions and all that kind of stuff. So
why did you decide to come to Chicago?
Because it was the closest city
with the jazz scene.
With the jazz scene.
So you were specific to coming to Chicago for the jazz scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. So you could drive there. You
right.
wouldn't have to get to New York, which was a flight.
Exactly.
And everything else. So you came here specifically to do that. Were you working in your field at that point, or no? You just said,
no.
I'm in.
Well, I did the whole day job thing. I technically worked in my degree area for a little bit, but I would do the 9 to 5 thing and then go to the jam session, get home at 2, and I was always late for work because I wouldn't get to bed till like 3, and I'm like, I can't keep doing this. So then I eventually stopped doing that and then started doing more of the music thing and teaching and that sort of thing. So eventually I made my way here.
All right, so you're working in your field now. You're hanging out late at night with jazz musicians, and you think, you know what? This is the greatest idea I possibly could do. I'm quitting my day job.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All you young kids out there, you're getting into the scene at that point. Who are you playing with? Who are like did you have any studies at that point? Or you just kind of like...
Kinda. I had, I I started pretty much at the Zebra Lounge, actually.
I remember that place.
Yeah, it's still
Where
around.
was it?
Where
is it?
It's like State and Dearborn.
Oh,
And
okay.
and it's this tiny itty bitty club in the bottom.
Well, State and Dearborn. It's got to be.
I'm sorry. Division and Dearborn,
Division and Dearborn.
I think,
Okay.
or Division and State. I don't know.
Sounds
it's down
good.
there somewhere.
It's down there. So it's down the stairs, right?
No, it's on it's on the lower level of an apartment building.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it seats about maybe 20 people, 30 people. It's like super small.
Yeah.
So, but that's where I would start going to listen to pianists and, that kind of scene. And so we were I'm going to say we're the first. I don't know if that's official.
I don't think anybody's going to check.
But the first jazz trio that played there, because normally it's a piano bar.
Okay.
And so I played with Brett Bentler, who's a bass player, and who now lives in New York, and this piano player by the name of Phong Pham. He's Vietnamese.
Okay.
And he went to DePaul, and we met in some kind of crazy way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I played with him a lot, and then drummers, I played with Jim Barclay, I think, a little bit, and it's kind of all a blur.
So you guys are putting this together,
yeah,
right? So you're hanging out, and then you kind of pitched this idea to the owner and said, "Hey, why don't I come in with a trio?"
Yeah, and they're like, "Sure, yeah, great." So we did that for about 3 months, and then from there it just kind of went to one-offs here and there,
right.
And then.
Weren't you doing something at SIP at one point too?
Yes.
Or you were kind of in the rotation over there a little bit when he was doing regular music and stuff. Okay.
Yep. Did that. I worked with some people who were here in the 70s and 80s would know. I can't remember his last name. His first name is Jay. He had Faces on Rush Avenue.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
And Jay's.
Yeah.
So he gave me one of my first gigs, steady gigs. So yeah, it was more of the kind of piano bar kind of scene.
Just because that's the kind of thing that you could get gigs in.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, now what number recording is this?
3.
3, right?
3.
I mean, because I know that you've put out a couple under your own name, right? And you have a collaborator that we were talking about off camera, so why don't we talk about him right now, who's Kevin Bales, right? And he's from Atlanta.
Right.
So and then you also have a connection in New York, where you play kind of a steady gig in New York, even though you live in Chicago. The beauty of airline travel.
Yes.
So you're there, once or twice a month now, right?
Yeah, a couple times a month.
What's the name of the place?
The place is the Flatiron Room.
Okay.
And Flatiron Room.
That's a big endorsement. So you're at the Flatiron Room in New York, and you're there with a trio, or
a trio or quartet, depending.
So that's pretty interesting. So you're able to you're breaking into the New York scene because obviously you're meeting people. Because if you're hiring people in New York, they're very fond of you at that point because you're hiring them. In which case, I'm sure you're meeting different people in New York, probably getting good connections. And then you're here and you're putting out recordings. All right, so you've got 3 recordings out. This is the new one.
Yes.
And I don't think any of the other recordings, if I'm missing something, was a themed recording, right? This is specific to the music of Fred Rogers.
Correct.
Everything else was standards and maybe some originals. Is that?
Well, the last album I did with Kevin was all original music.
Okay.
But yeah, the first one was a mix of standards.
Okay. And now this one, we got to talk about this one.
Yes.
Now. All right. So Beyond the Neighborhood, the music of Fred Rogers.
Yes.
Why? I always wanted to say that.
You got your chance.
Damn. All right. So why did you decide on this concept? Are you looking back into your childhood, or how does that work?
Yeah. Kevin and I, as I mentioned before, had worked on the previous album, and we were just kind of talking about how when we were growing up, children's programs had really good music with in cartoons as their soundtrack, like Tom and Jerry, or Sesame Street, or whatever.
Yeah, they used to have killer music.
Yeah, exactly. So then Mr. Rogers came up in the conversation, and Kevin is actually a huge fan of this show, and I watched Fred Rogers,
sure.
And I enjoyed the program, but he really had a connection to it just because of the music, and he said this to me before, where listening to the trio that would play actually got him interested into jazz.
Oh, okay.
So it inspired him to investigate that genre and see if he wanted it.
I remember he actually went off the set, and I'm sure you've probably seen this, and introduced everybody to the group and introduced people to the drum set and the piano and the bass and all that stuff.
Right.
Do you remember who the trio was that was on that band?
Well, Johnny Costa was the piano player, and he was the musical director.
They used to have rotating guys, I think. They had a regular steady thing, but they used to have different guys probably too.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Joe Negri, who played the handyman on Mr. Rogers, was actually a jazz guitarist. Oh. And so he would play with them. Okay. And then the bass player and the drummer, their names are escaping me, but yeah, they would play live on that program. I mean, it wasn't pre-recorded or anything. It was just as soon as he walked through that door, the music started. Right. So that's pretty. I thought that was pretty cool and interesting because you don't really see that anymore. So
what are the tunes that are on this album then? Are they tunes that were played on the show? Or?
A lot of them are. Okay. But Fred Rogers had a couple other children's programs before the Neighborhood. One called the Children's Corner, and the other one was the Mr. Rogers Show, and which was filmed in Canada actually. Okay. And so some of the songs on the album are songs from those programs as well. So it's not just from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We've got a couple other selections on the album from
fill us in. Like, what are they original tunes that were written for the show? Or are there tunes that we might recognize? Or
you might recognize maybe a couple of them. We didn't record like It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood because a lot of people know that one. Right. So, and a lot of people have recorded that one. But we did record what was called the Weekend Song, which was sung at the end of the week for Mr. Rogers. And
it's when they'd all go out drinking afterwards, right?
Yeah. Throwback a few stressful days.
It's kind of like a disco funky thing.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
See? Yeah, the king would come out and they'd all go out drinking.
Yeah. King Friday. Gets hammered. No.
It's a great idea. Episode 101. Stick around for that. Yeah. All right, so these are actually tunes that they had on the show. Are they readily available? I mean, how did you even get the music to this stuff?
A lot of it, some of it is available, but we just rearranged it because we found them in there is a music book, like children's music book that Fred had out, and so we would take that book and then we just kind of rearrange some of the chords.
Okay, and sure, reharmonize.
Yeah, reharmonize
stuff
like that. Yeah,
yep.
Rearranged them. Some of them were transcribed from just obviously listening, but the thing is that Fred wrote all the music.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he wrote every single one of those songs.
Wow.
Yeah, so. It's
I would have never known that.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And he also wrote 13 operettas for the show.
For the show.
So,
wait a minute. Fun fact. Here's a fun fact. When I was 5 years old, I went as the potato bug.
What?
I went as the potato bug, and that's one of the operas.
It is?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And there's a picture of me as the... Maybe I'll drop it on here. Probably not.
You should insert it.
Will depend on how I feel about that. But yeah, I went as the potato bug. My mom was like, "You want to be what?" Potato. So she had to make the costume from scratch. That's enough of Mike Jeffers reminiscing. All right.
That's so great.
But that was one of the operas.
It was.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember.
Yep. And so we did record a couple of songs from those operettas on the album too.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of what you'll find. You'll find things like that and maybe one or two familiar songs from the show. A couple you won't know at all. Yeah. I know.
And it's pretty much swinging stuff or doing different grooves on it?
Yeah, different grooves. There's a couple swinging tunes. A few different feels. We try to vary it. Obviously. So now your show at Winter's Jazz Club, which is this Thursday, if you're watching this this week. Right.
Which is March 22nd, 7:30 p.m., 9:30 p.m. shows.
Yes.
Who's on the gig? And what can people expect to hear? You're going to just play the whole album, or what do you think?
We're gonna actually add a couple more songs that we didn't record, and other songs that are pertinent to the whole theme.
Yeah.
But who's playing with me? Kevin Bales, of course, is playing piano.
Coming in from Atlanta.
Yep. And then we also have a couple of other Atlanta musicians coming in. Marlon Patton is playing drums. He's a fantastic drummer. And Kevin Smith is on bass. And Kevin actually spent a semester at NIU.
So he was in the area a little bit.
He was in the area a little bit before he moved down to Atlanta.
Yeah.
So some people might know him here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. It's a quartet. And
that's great.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
And now if people cannot make it that night, which I can't imagine why you wouldn't make it that night.
I mean, come on.
Really, right?
It's Fred Rogers.
March 22nd, Fred Rogers. Come on. But if not, they can get all the information. I'm assuming they can purchase the CD and all that other good stuff. CD Baby, Amazon, everywhere else. So.
Yes. Well, there's a little wrench in all that. We decided to do mostly online and downloading, streaming sort of thing. Right now, the only way to get an actual CD is to come to our show.
Oh,
so
there it is. And I bet you would sign it if they came to your show.
If there's a pen, we will sign.
Bring a pen.
Bring a pen.
You bring a pen.
Yes, I'm sure we'll have some pens.
So everything. So is it if they go to KeriJohnsrud.com, KERI Johnsrud.com, and I'm going to link that up below. They can download it. They can buy it off of CD Baby, iTunes, all that good stuff. I'd imagine.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, of course, you can get it at your show. Now, if they can't make it on the 22nd, are you doing anything else with this? Anything on the books or any other gigs that anybody should know about other than that one?
Not in the Chicago area yet.
Okay.
Because we'll be making our way to Des Moines and to Omaha after Chicago.
Okay.
So if you're in the Midwest, if you happen to be visiting family in Omaha,
that's right.
Come on by.
Or you live in Omaha.
Or exactly.
So you're actually, this is a little mini tour then.
It's a little tour.
So you're starting at Winters and then you're going to Iowa.
Yep.
And then you're going to Omaha.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
I know.
Okay. Like boom, 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 like the weekend,
the
right?
I-80 tour. That's what we're doing.
All right. So all the information is at KeriJohnsrud.com. It's called Beyond the Neighborhood, the music of Fred Rogers, Winters Jazz Club, March 22nd. Keri, thanks for stopping by.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was super fun.
Absolutely. Hopefully I didn't get too off the rails here.
That's great. Everyone needs to.
And of course, the way I always end the show, of course, if she and I don't see you at Winters Jazz Club March 22nd or somewhere else this weekend, hopefully we will see you somewhere out on the scene.